Alright everyone, the legacy media, which can also be called the Moron media, fake news or anything else, the yellow journalists of the world, they're still clinging to the DNC leaks were Russian hackers lie, which has been discredited so many times. If Russian hackers actually broke into the DNC's emails, don't you think that the politicians themselves would still be bringing it up? Instead, we've got Donna Brazile saying, oh, well, fuck that issue. I'm going to talk about the fact that the DNC and the Clinton camp were openly colluding during the primaries to screw Bernie Sanders over. Now, she was heading the DNC at the time. Don't you think she would have been acutely aware if they had actual evidence that that was going on? She trotted it out a couple times. She stopped talking about it, basically disappeared post-election for the most part, except when it turned out the DNC did other shifty things while she was there, which she may or may not have apparently been party to, because I can't even imagine that she would have come out and exposed this in her book if it weren't for the fact that she felt screwed and backstabbed maybe too. Maybe she was a Sanders fan, who knows? Can we be 100% sure? But now the Toronto Sun is basically echoing the same line that we have in the US media. Oh, here's how Hillary Clinton's emails were stolen, Podesta's emails were stolen, the DNC leaks, everything was stolen by Russians. Which doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. In every one of these cases, it's like Obama with the NSA. The explanations and the excuses keep changing over time to become so mutually exclusive to their original form that something has to be a lie. There has to have been a lie told, because it's not possible for everything to coexist. NSA leaks. Let's use this as an example of the same basic phenomenon. We go back to the Clapper era, essentially, to the Edward Snowden days. Snowden comes out. Each time he releases a slew of material related to the NSA surveillance, the politicians or somebody comes out, head of the NSA, Obama himself, some other official, it doesn't really matter. Pelosi, I think, was involved. They come out and they keep saying things that that defeat what else has been said. Like when they say, oh, well, how many attacks were stopped by the NSA? When they were trying to justify the program, they said, at first, I think it was the head of the NSA himself came out and said, well, I think it's stopped 2 or 3 attacks that I know of, credible threats. And then I think it turned into like a dozen. Pelosi weighed in, and then somebody else weighed in and said it was like 60, 70, some insane number that was never true. Leahy himself, who's not exactly unreceptive to the message of the NSA, later in questioning gets the head of the NSA to admit that, to his knowledge, not a single credible threat was ever stopped by their mass surveillance program. Their agents in affiliation with other offices had certainly stopped attacks, but the surveillance itself was not predominantly responsible for any of that. That is, it's a useless program. But the thing is, the story kept changing over time. Depending on who you asked, you got 5 or 6 different variants of the truth. At most, one of them can possibly be true. You're dealing with a discrete number. Now, when we look at the DNC leaks, we get the same friggin' thing. Over and over. We have, or the election, another great example. Election influence. Is it Russians hacked the election? Is it Russians influenced the election by controlling, like, Nazi forums? Is it the Russians influenced the election by hacking and stealing a bunch of data and trying to skew people's perception of the DNC and Hillary Clinton? What exactly happened? Did they tamper with the voting machines? Did they just buy 10,000 of Facebook ads? Was it a couple dozen Twitter bots, or was it this magical 2,000-3,000 Twitter bots? Well, who the hell cares? How many people were influenced? Well, they can't say. They say, well, it might have reached 100 million people during the election, these various bots on these forums and sites. Okay, just because somebody's been reached doesn't mean they're number 1 U.S. citizen, number 2 a U.S. citizen who's actually going to vote, number 3 someone who will actually change their vote. That's probably a smaller number, but I can't imagine it was 100 million people that were actually fooled by evil Red Scare propaganda. But the Moron media doesn't want you to know that fact. They want to ruminate on all this bullcrap that they keep spewing. The truth is, the DNC was not hacked by Russians. It was not phished, at least successfully in most of the cases, by Russians. And if John Podesta took a phishing link from a Russian hacker, Well, that just shows that people within the Democratic Party are incapable of properly leading this country into an era where cyber warfare actually has meaningful sum and substance impacts upon world economies. I wouldn't want them in charge. If they don't know how to secure a friggin' server, they may have like a Hillary Clinton. She wants to be the president of the United States. She can't even secure her personal yoga emails. That's a problem to me. It's a big, big problem. If the Republicans had had this problem, don't you think these same people would be calling them inept? Well, you know, don't you think this establishes a pattern of them not really knowing who to hire and what to do to safeguard info? How are they going to safeguard Americans' info? It would be a valid question to ask. Hillary Clinton apparently can't. John Podesta, you know, her campaign chair apparently can't. The DNC at large keeps the same password it established in 2008, which was Obama 08, and they're worried about being hacked when any lowly intern apparently could take that material too. It's just like at the NSA. The NSA is tasked with properly storing, or was before Congress said, okay, we're going to store it. In private companies will store the actual data. We'll just retrieve it for temporary use, and then, you know, sort of we'll have it on hand with these private firms. Better than the former technically constitutional, but it's a total reach around. It's totally them jelking themselves off. This was Ted Cruz's idea of a joke, I have to say, or his idea of a compromise with Mitch McConnell to think that it actually safeguarded anything. The NSA is tasked with safeguarding the info that they're actually using in accordance with the Fourth Amendment, in accordance with the basic dignity expected by the U.S. people of the privacy of their data if it's being handled by some government entity. Like, you don't want the government being loose with your personal info. You know, if it's just a name and an address or something, it's one thing, but they're talking about reams and reams of emails and everything else under the sun. We find out, despite the fact that they said, don't worry, it's ironclad, nothing will ever get misused, Snowden certainly grabbed a lot of stuff. He slapped it on a USB and went to China. Wonderful. Well, there's one rogue agent that exposed the stupidity of your organization. And what about Love Int that nobody in the media even wanted to cover? They had it on page 2, very, very briefly, and then covered it up. I think the government came out and asked them to please scrub it from their sites as much as possible, because it was just so damning. And if it had gone front page, if more people had known it was going on, they would have called for the disbanding of the NSA itself. We had NSA agents, lowly agents, using their positions to spy on their loved ones and friends, and using that label, apparently with the blessing of the NSA itself. This is a prevalent problem within our government. It doesn't require some Russian hacker to apparently grab government data. It requires one disgruntled employee. It requires one half-assed fisher. It requires somebody capable of guessing a 7-character password. That's what it requires. That you're telling me that that's our security apparatus against nations like China and North Korea, and you're sitting there trying to convince me I should be worried specifically about the Russians. Well, yeah, okay, the Russians can certainly hack it, but they don't even need to hack it. Can you guess a password? Okay, yeah, fine. Do you have like a group of neck-bearded teenagers could probably crack into some of these servers, they're so poorly guarded. It doesn't require some KGB agent with scars all over his face to do it. Oh yes, I still use floppy disks, haha, they're so secure. You don't need that. Apparently we have no real cybersecurity in the country. So it's shit to me who specifically took the info. But I think all bets, in this case of the DNC, are on some random disgruntled employee who knew, because they were reading the material, they had access to the emails apparently. Now, all of them did. And the janitor could have read Hillary Clinton's, memos to her upper-level staff. John Podesta's emails? Yeah, some staffer, some intern works there on a part-time basis, been there a month, apparently has top-level access. Oh, yeah, go ahead and go read through them. It's just fine. We trust you, because we're not inept. We're just really trusting. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. Some lowly staffer saw some of these emails, figured out what had been done to Bernie Sanders during the primaries. They found out just what Donna Brazile found out. They probably approached her with it at some point, which is why specifically she's putting it in her book. Did anybody think of this possibility? And then they got canned, or if it was someone named Seth, randomly killed on the street for a watch that they didn't even take. That's what happened. It was a case of a disgruntled employee. and to cover up their own asses for their own scandalous behavior because, you know, they were in the middle of an election and everything, to prevent them from being crushed into the ground, they said, oh shit, oh, we gotta cover our tracks somehow. Blame the Russians. You know, people are talking about like cyber war and stuff right now. We'll just blame them. It would have been so wonderful if Clinton had won, because if Clinton had won, we might have had World War III by now. Or, on the flip side, oddly enough, had she won, you might not have heard anything else about Russia subsequently. You're hearing a lot about them now. Oh, they influenced the election, they love Trump, they're controlling, like, evil stormtrooper Nazis and stuff. All of which is a bunch of bullshit. The legacy media wouldn't have even continued to bring them up, though, despite the fact that supposedly it would still be a prevalent issue now, would it? It would still be a problem, but they wouldn't be talking about it because Hillary Clinton would know it's false. She would want to do normal diplomacy, hopefully, with Russia, and if not, well, we'd probably all be dead by now. There's a reason I voted against Hillary Clinton. Part of it was the DNC being shifty. Part of it, of course, was, you know, she's Hillary Clinton. That was always an issue, but, you know, it's just sort of the way that the coin falls. It's too bad that the so-called journalists in this country have so little credibility at this point that basically no one trusts them. Used to be a time where they got away with some propaganda because occasionally something that they uttered was actually true. Those times are long past, like, yeah, I was a little kid at the time, so yeah, it's post 9/11. We have basically no truth from them. They want me to believe that a bunch of KGB agents are trying to crush the government. While I think the government for quite some time has been doing a good job of crushing itself and our republic, doesn't really need Russia's help. I think Russia's their scapegoat because it brings up this big scary image again of the scarred KGB post-Soviet agent with, you know, a nuclear device. A spy versus spy scenario, something like that. Well, you know, I'm a little more concerned about people who are too inept to secure a smartphone, an email server, too dumb to choose the right staffer who they can actually trust. These people are running our country. That is indeed a problem. That's about all. Peace out.